NBA season is back, and while teams continue to find their footing, my partners at Fanatics Sportsbook are already running championship plays. Bet with Fanatics and earn up to 10% fan cash on your bets, win or lose. So even if your bet misses, you're still scoring fan cash, which you can use on NBA gear, tickets, and exclusive Fanatics events. And with fair play, if your player goes down injured in the first half, your bet stays live. Make the switch and get more ways to win with Fanatics Sportsbook. Winning hits different here. Welcome to the Putback here on SNY.TV. I'm Ian Begley, SNY's NBA insider, and I've got a fantastic guest today, Knicks Film School Dean Jon Macri. Also, frequent appearances on Sports Night on SNY, so you can check them out there as well. We're going to have a lot of fun. We're going to get through a half hour or so of Knicks talk, NBA talk, and as always, we start with the baseline. We want to get into last night because Knicks-Timberwolves was, for an early season game, I thought there was some good energy early on, and when the Knicks play the way they played, to me, they made a little bit of a statement. And it's probably too early to make a loud statement in this NBA season, but they did make a little bit of a statement to me. John, what was your read coming off of that game?
I said it last night. I think I wrote it again this morning. I think it's fair to say that was a statement game. I mean, I know the Timberwolves right now are dealing with their own kind of bench issues. Like when Rudy Gobert sits, the defensive numbers on the year for them are pretty ugly, but that's a real basketball team. You know, they've been to 2 straight Western Conference Finals. They had Anthony Edwards. Whether or not Anthony Edwards was 100% last night coming off the injury, you know, he probably wasn't. But the way the Wolves have been shooting it this year, and even especially the way that they came out and shot it last night, you know, I don't know about you. There were a few points in that game where I felt it was teetering in the other direction, where it looked like maybe if the Knicks couldn't, you know, start to string together some stops, the game was going to get away from them. So for them to come out, play as well as they did in the third quarter, still not get the lead up to where it probably should have been, and then just keep their foot on the gas in the fourth. I took a lot of encouraging signs from it. I know it's a long season. It's only game 8, but I think, you know, with especially some of the issues that popped up on that 3-game road trip that didn't go so well, it's hard not to at least be encouraged by what we saw last night.
Yeah, John, you mentioned the third quarter, and, you know, you look for early trends, even though we're only a few games into the season. Knicks earlier in the season hadn't come out great in that third quarter, and it looked like it might be one of those things where it keeps happening and you look at it throughout the season, but they nipped that in the bud. Certainly on this homestand, come out pretty strong throughout the homestand, but particularly against Minnesota. Minnesota had some good momentum going into halftime. Julius, Randle, Donte, DiVincenzo playing very, very well on their old home floor. I think I don't know who Julius was talking to, but every time he was hitting a shot, he was going back down, backpedaling and yelling something at the Knicks bench towards the Knicks. So he was locked in and he was playing really well. So there were times there where you said, wow, Julius and Donte are just going to carry them, and Anthony Edwards is going to do what he does, and this is going to be a tough game. Credit to the Knicks. Credit to Mitchell Robinson, OG Anunoby in particular, Miles McBride in particular, Jalen Brunson, obviously. But to come out in that third quarter and really take command of that game, to me, that showed me something about the group. And I think this is kind of the way they drew it up, right? What you saw last night. Obviously, you're not getting that every night. But in a perfect world, I think this is what they were thinking when they put this roster together in terms of how it all might flow on both ends of the floor. So very good night for the Knicks last night, I thought. And then, 83 points in the second half. John, what do you see just generally from the offense and the new offense, the Mike Brown offense? What do you see from it?
Well, I mean, Mike's been saying it since he started the job. For him, it's all about getting in the paint and then spraying out for 3. And I think I checked last night, the Knicks are now 5th in average 3-point attempts per game. But with the exception of, maybe a couple OG Anunoby threes here and there, talk about a guy who has the ultimate green light. All of the threes that they're taking, from my vantage point at least, are quality threes. And they're open threes. Oftentimes, they are threes that are generated from penetration. from ball movement. We're seeing a lot maybe of concepts that we didn't maybe see as much in some of the years past. Look, it's a make or miss league. It's a make or miss league more now than ever before with the amount of threes that teams take. But there's no reason why this team should not be a good shooting team, and now they're getting up there towards the top 10 in percentage after they struggled for a couple games again on the road trip. So I'm just seeing an offense that is getting comfortable with itself, and guys who, maybe we'll get into it. Is everybody 100% super happy with their role right now? Maybe not, but certain key figures, it definitely seems like, are embracing the roles that they have been given. You look at Bridges, you look at Anunoby, and credit to a guy like Jordan Clarkson, who is used to playing 25 plus minutes a game, and for him to come in some of these games playing the teens and be ready and he was really helpful last night. That's a testament to whatever Mike Brown is selling over there.
You mentioned the 3-point shooting. Knicks up to third in the league, I believe, in attempts per game, and they hit 44% on this homestand from beyond the arc. It says a lot about them executing what Mike Brown wants, and it's not going to be perfect, but early signs that this team could be really good. Now you look at the injury updates, John, healthy pretty much, right? Karl-Anthony Towns, the quad is not showing up on the injury report so far, or lately, I should say. I know he was ill before the game last night, but no quad. Josh Hart, no back. Mitchell Robinson, no ankle, no foot. So far, so good right now with the status of the health of this group. As you know, that's going to be the most important thing for them going into the playoffs, is to be healthy. But Mitchell Robinson, for him to do what he did last night, it's such a short amount of time, and he just reminded you, if you needed a reminder, how much he can impact the game, how much he can wreck a game. And with Mitch, is he going to be healthy? Is he not going to be healthy? That's always a question. Is there grass greener somewhere else? Do we get somebody else in here? That's always a question. But when he's healthy, I mean, John, you've been watching him for a while. Does anything surprise you at this point with him?
Does anything surprise me? I mean, it's Mitch, so he might say something that's surprising every now and then, because you never know. But no, it really doesn't. I guess maybe the most surprising thing about Mitch, big picture wise, is when he first came into the league, he was defined by inconsistency. And I would say for years, it was just like, all right, it might be a good half, it might be a good game, it might even be a good week or so. But it was such, ups and downs. And now you could argue that when Mitchell Robinson is healthy and feeling right, what he gives you on both ends of the floor is as consistent as any Knick in terms of what they're, reliably, you're getting the best offensive rebounder in the sport. You're getting a guy who is, I don't know, top 3, top 5 in terms of covering the pick and roll. And then, needless to say, what he's able to do just on the defensive end, and how much easier he makes everybody else's lives. Because I think one of the things I liked last night, and one of the things I've liked a little bit about the Knicks this season, is splash plays, steals, getting out in transition and turning defense into easy offense. I think that's going to be one of the ways that they're going to be able to prop themselves up on the defensive end. All that stuff is so much easier when you have a guy like Mitchell Robinson in there to have your back as the last line of defense. And I think, again, we saw some of that last night.
Yeah, and it's the numbers are crazy, but also just the attention that he draws, and he's opening up opportunities for his teammates to go and crash and get offensive rebounds, or he's dissuading somebody who's approaching the rim from going all the way to the rim. And it's just his presence there it makes a huge difference. And I think that, you look big picture with him, contract year, right? Free agency this summer, potential to be extended. We're going to take some questions from the audience later on in a mailbag session. We're going to bring in my friend and yours, Matt Spenley, the Big Spend. But I'm going to jump it a little bit and just reference a couple questions we got earlier today from Johnny Chiba and from Triple M, our guy. What are the plans for Mitch this season? Want to keep him fresh until the playoffs, but for a player on the verge of free agency, How long until he wants to be unleashed in order to accurately be compensated for his offseason? Very good question. And then with Mitch's splendorific performance, Johnny Chiba writes, come extension talks. Now, what I know for sure is that there were no extensive talks previous to the regular season. None. Maybe there was a check-in, maybe there was a few check-ins, but the talks did not go anywhere to an advanced stage. And so now you're in the season. Can you get to a number that makes sense in season? Sure, you can. But I think the most logical path here, or the most, if you want to put odds on it, the likely path here is now Mitchell Robinson not having the extension going into the season, hitting free agency, and then seeing what the market's like. And there's going to be teams with cap space. And if he's healthy, he's going to be very attractive on that open market. So look, maybe the Knicks surprise me and they do get a deal done in season. Historically, you haven't seen that a ton. You saw it with Miles McBride, but with Mitchell Robinson, if he has this impact on the floor when he's healthy, even though the Knicks are limiting him, teams know what he can do when he's continuing to show it. He's going to draw a lot of interest in free agency. But again, just to restate it, because I do think it's important, nothing extensive, nothing substantive in terms of conversations about an extension between Mitchell Robinson and the Knicks entering the regular season, John.
Two things I wonder here. Number one, the NBA changed the rules a couple of years ago, right? Well, now you could negotiate with your existing free agents, I think the day the finals end, right? Mm-hmm. So maybe they're thinking like, hey, if we make it through the season healthy and Mitch is a big part of what we do in the playoffs, that window, might help them. Whereas in years past, they might not have had that same opportunity. And then the other thing just that I kind of keep in the back of my mind, and I don't know if this is part of the Knicks calculation here, but if you do extend Mitch in season, and you would imagine that you're going to be extending him for a significant number if he's going to be willing to accept it at this point, then that means, from Jump Street, when the new league year starts, you might be over the second apron or very close to the second apron, and it might impede your ability to do some different things. Whereas if you do not extend him in the season, then at least it gives you that additional little bit of leeway for if, say, again, just spitballing here, you need to do some maneuvering where to stay under the apron, and then maybe you could take care of other business later. So I just think for as much as this front office likes to settle its family business, so to speak, early, they also seem to value a certain modicum of flexibility and optionality when it comes to certain things. So this seems to be one of those situations where it's maybe towing the line between those two things. So it'll be interesting to see how it resolves itself. But, as a fan of the team, I don't ever want to see Mitchell Robinson wearing another uniform. I love Mitch's Nick.
There's two kind of homegrown players here that, to me, you look at the macro perspective and you look at Miles McBride, like they're going to have to pay him at some point too. Mm-hmm. And so you're going to pay Mitchell Robinson, you're going to pay Miles McBride. And what do your finances look like then? How much does that limit you in terms of what you can do around the edges, team building? So I have no idea if it's one or the other, or they could definitely do both. I don't know. I just know that those two things are kind of staring the Knicks in the face in a bigger picture sense. Obviously not right now, but just something that I'm keeping an eye on as we get through this thing. Because Miles McBride, Mike Brown said it, he was the most important player on the floor last night in terms of getting the Knicks going, changing the energy on the floor, pushing the ball, creating, knocking shots down. And Mike Brown made sure to make it clear in his post-game press conference how much he appreciated McBride's effort. So he is very important to what the Knicks want to do. And yeah, so far so good there. One more injury, John, is Mr. Josh Hart, the nerve damage that he has talked about. And it's when you hear that and you hear about numbing in the hand and losing feeling in his shooting hand, that's a big deal. But he knocks down, I think was he 4 or 5 last night from beyond the arc?
From 3. Yep.
Yeah. And so whatever's going on with his hand, he can still knock shots down. And if he's comfortable playing with whatever he's going through, to me, you have to have confidence if you're a Knicks fan, because of what Josh Hart has done for you and done with this group to date. I think you just give him the benefit of the doubt because he's been such an important part of this team's success that, maybe you're scratching your head. You're saying, why don't you have surgery? Why not surgery? But I think you give Hart and you give the Knicks medical staff the benefit of the doubt here, that he knows his body. He knows what makes sense for him. Where are you on that, John, though? Surgery, no surgery, and Josh Hart?
He's a professional athlete. He's been in the league for a long time. I will trust him and his opinion on his body more than I will trust, my own or any outside, to say nothing of the fact that the Knicks medical staff literally just won an award for having, they were the best staff in the league last year. So if they feel that the plan, moving forward is to just let Josh Hart kind of play through it. And I'm, it's funny you use the word confidence before in the context of fans having confidence in Hart. To me, Josh Hart, as much as maybe I'm sure his physical issues are impacting him, this is a player that I think it always comes back to his level of confidence at any given time. And does he feel confident in his jump shot and in his ability to do all the things that, when he's going right, he is able to do on the floor. And I think what you've seen the last 3 games is an incredibly confident player who is feeling more comfortable. I really thought his comments to you guys about having a consistent role in Mike Brown's offense, as opposed to maybe being a starter sometimes and then going to the bench sometimes. I thought that was really interesting and revealing. And maybe now he's settling into, like, I know what I'm going to be every night. It's going to be, 20, 25 minutes off the bench. Whatever it is, the guy that is playing for them right now doesn't seem like he needs any surgeries for anything, because he's playing really good basketball.
And just one other thing, John, you hit on one thing I wanted to say, which was the idea that there's consistency there with the patterns, and Josh knows where he stands in that rotation. I talked to him a little bit this week, just off the side, about surgery, and he said it's far off the table. And there are a couple of reasons that he brought up that I thought maybe were interesting that maybe people don't think about, because if you go in and you have that surgery, yes, a timetable reportedly 3 months, but you're talking about your shooting hand, you're talking about nerves in your hand, and it's a risk, right? It's a big risk, and you're talking about a big rehab in season. And I understood, just in Josh's explanation, I understood why he is not thinking about surgery, because you open it up, who knows what happens. And, you have a plan going into surgery. Sometimes plans go awry. And so it's also a shooting hand, and there's just too much on the line in terms of what could go wrong with that kind of a surgery in season. So I get it, because I was one of the people who thought, like, why not just get under the knife, get it over with, and come back? But after asking him about it, like, the things that he was saying made a lot of sense to me. It's different when it's your body, and it's different when you're thinking about coming back from something that's as significant as that. So I can understand that from his perspective. We hit on Miles McBride a little earlier, the defensive player of the game. He got it. He got the Thibs, and he got the treatment after the game where they're taking a picture, and Josh Hart and Jalen Brunson in the background, man, they're getting me every time on that defensive player of the game picture. But I think you got to credit the Knicks for putting that together, because it seems like something that maybe it's trivial to us, but it can build team camaraderie. Guys have fun with it, whether it matters to the outside or not. It looks like they're having a good time with it.
Well, Mike Brown. I think I don't know if Ian, you think this is fair to say. He's asking for a lot of buy-in here. This is a team that just went to the Eastern Conference Finals, and now he's asking them to change a lot of what made them successful last year. You've spoken a lot about this on my show and on this show, and so I think to do any of those little things that you could do along the way to just, it's something silly as putting a smile on guys' face. Give guys a reason to laugh and something to look forward to after the game. I'm a naive sports fan when it comes to this stuff sometimes, but in my mind, I'm like, this stuff has to help, right? It has to go a little bit further towards building the camaraderie and the culture and all that good stuff. So, and it's just cool to see from a fan's perspective. I love that they put out the picture after every game and seeing where Josh or Jalen are going to be. And then you have McCall is always in the seat, the spot right next to the winner.
Yeah.
Which makes me wonder, is he never going to win it because he likes being in that secondary spot? I don't know.
Yeah, it is fun. It's fun. And then you have Jordan Clarkson, who actually, he did win it. It must have been earlier this week. I'm forgetting specifically the night that he won it. Mike Brown did give it to him for being aggressive there defensively. And also, talking to Miles McBride last night, he made he specifically referenced, I'm sorry, this was Karl Town specifically referencing Clarkson on defense and the impact he was making. So, guys are noticing Clarkson's effort. I think the general thought, maybe from the NBA fan who's not watching him every day, was, he's not going to be great defensively, but give him credit for putting an effort, and also give him credit for navigating minutes that were fluctuating, role that was fluctuating, and coming in and taking advantage of his opportunity. They've been very impressive to me on this homestand recently. And how do you think he fits in to this hierarchy with the rotation ultimately, John?
Well, just on the defensive thing, it's not in the same way, but it reminds me a little bit of Jalen Brunson, and that Jalen Brunson isn't a great defender, but with the way he takes charges and he draws offensive fouls, he finds a way to make an impact on the defensive side of the floor. And I think you're seeing a similar thing from Jordan Clarkson. Again, not the strongest defender, but getting in passing lanes and just finding a way to make a positive imprint. And I think that is going to ultimately, to get to your question, lead to Mike Brown being comfortable giving him more minutes. As far as the hierarchy goes, I'm fascinated by it, because it's, you got Landry Shamet, often has been the first guard off the bench in these games, and yet you look at the minute totals after the game, and you have Clarkson has played more minutes than him, and Deuce has played more minutes than him. So I think Mike Brown just likes certain combinations, maybe, and is looking at it from that perspective, as opposed to, this guy has to play this many minutes, so I got to get him in here. He doesn't seem as bound by those things. I think Clarkson is a guy that, for one, you certainly want him on the floor when Jalen Brunson is off the court, to get a little bit more, shot creation in there. And I was talking about it with Benji Ritholtz last night. I really like the combination of him and Deuce McBride together on the floor. I think those two guys make sense together. And then you put them out there. The nice thing is you can put them out there with a Karl-Anthony Towns. It makes sense in a lot of ways. You can put them on the floor with Mitch, and it makes sense. So I think that pairing is versatile. And then obviously you could play either of those guys with Jalen if you want. So I think they're going to be able to use Jordan Clarkson in a lot of ways. But yeah, I mean, he's a guy who plays more minutes usually. I don't know. What is he going to average 20 minutes a game this year? Maybe that's a little high, but it's probably going to be less than he's used to.
Producer extraordinaire Sam Candell letting me know that it was the second game of the year where Clarkson got that Defensive Player of the Game award. Okay. So yeah, just a fun little side note that these guys are doing. But obviously with DiVincenzo, with Randle in town last night, to give you a natural reason to kind of look back at the trade with Karl-Anthony Towns and kind of where everybody sits. And I will say this, that first half, the way the ball was moving, the way they were connected on offense, the Timberwolves looked like they could be a very good team. They were just getting Anthony Edwards back, and they were, I think, at the end of a road trip. And so, you factor those things in, but just the way that they looked for a few minute stretches in that game, you could see how they can be very good. West is going to be so tough. Who knows where they end up? But with the Knicks here, Karl-Anthony Towns, I think he's getting his footing under him in Mike Brown's system. He's had some very good moments, particularly on this homestand. I don't know if it's an increased comfort level. I don't know if he's getting the ball more than he was earlier. Maybe it's a combination of things, but he's played very well. So to me, it's hard to judge the trade right now. I know, and that's kind of a cop out, right? But I would say let's talk again in 2 years and see where we are, and particularly late spring to see where we are, to really start to judge this thing. How do you see it, John?
I mean, I don't think saying 2 years is unfair. I mean, even if you wanted to go further than that, because, you know, and we don't have to have this conversation yet, but Karl-Anthony Towns is eligible for a pretty significant extension that he actually could have signed this past summer. And, you know, I don't know, you'd know better than me whether there were any real talks there. So, you know, and that's with the NBA economy the way it is now. That's one of those kind of dicey extensions where you have a player who has the resume that Karl-Anthony Towns does, but, you know, teams aren't as free handing out just, you know, max contracts. You look at the situation with Trae Young in Atlanta, like, you know, so I say all this to say that it may be a while before we, you know, get a full grade on the trade. That said, all the Knicks have to do is win one little measly NBA title, and then we could stop having all of those conversations, because then the trade is a win, right? But until that day, I think it's going to be something we'll keep talking about. And then the only other part of it I just want to throw in, because I always think about this, the unknown of, if they did not pull off that trade, what would they have done at the center position? You know, we don't have to go rehash old stuff, but they obviously, that was some part of why they made the deal. So what other direction would they have gone? Could they have gone? You know, those are answers I think we just unfortunately don't know.
Right. And I also go to a different variable with Julius Randle, where they weren't going to extend him. He was going to be on the team, obviously, all year long and going into free agency, and just such a high stakes year, just based on how it had already gone with Julius and him being a lightning rod and kind of fairly sometimes, unfairly sometimes, being the face of the criticism of the team when things weren't going well. I see that as a tough combination of factors in that season, and I don't know if that was factored in at all, but that's something that I think about there with the trade. And Karl Towns seems to be getting more comfortable here, and you could see though that, you know, obviously Jalen Brunson, Donte DiVincenzo, Josh Hart, you know, still very close, and I think there's a lot of competitive juices there. Mentioned earlier, Julius Randle yelling at the Knick bench. We know what happened last year, shortly after the trade with Donte DiVincenzo and Rick Brunson. And so these games are fun. There was a lot of energy in that game for such an early season game. I'm looking forward to seeing the next one. And we'll see what happens. I guess it'll be obviously in Minnesota. And I think Anthony Edwards, if healthy, they'll look like a different team. Anyway, I'm going to tell you guys a little bit about Play Ball. The SNY Play Ball program, presented by Toyota, is looking to support local youth basketball leagues with grants, fun and informative clinics, equipment donations, and special Harlem Globetrotters appearances. If you know a league in need, apply today at sny.tv/playball. So the youth leagues out there, be sure to check that out. Take advantage of that. It seems like a great program. And now we're going to switch to a segment that we call Sound Off. We're going to listen to some sound from earlier in the week, and we're going to talk about it. I'm going to ask John about it, but let's play the sound.
The great thing about Mike, you know, he's an amazing person first and foremost. But he always has an open door. You know, if you don't understand something, don't understand what's going on, so you can go and talk to him. So, you know, obviously this is a process. You know, everyone wants it built now, but you know it won't be. And we're learning. You know, including him.
Yeah, so to me, you know, you have Josh Hart there coming off a strong game, and Mike Brown was talking about after that game too, the idea that he felt like he had a better handle on rotations, more consistent rotations and substitution patterns, and Josh Hart agreed with that. But he also was saying that in that Chicago game, in Chicago, he just wasn't himself. He wasn't in the right space. He didn't bring the right energy to the game, kind of alluding to the idea that his role, he wasn't sure what his role was, and things were kind of in flux with the minutes and the role. So that the idea that now it's got some structure to it, there's some consistency there, I think is significant. But more significant to me is the idea that Mike Brown, the open door policy. And look, I'm sure that all coaches have that quote unquote open door policy, but do they live it? And if Mike Brown actually lives it, and guys can go in, knock on his door, talk to him. To me, that's big, because if you have that avenue, then you can also hold players accountable for their mistakes in a way that has an impact, but in a way that does not fracture a relationship. And I know for sure that during games, halftime, after games, Mike Brown has not been hesitant to call out players, rotation players at the top of the rotation when he thinks they've made mistakes or they're not playing to the level that they can. He's been vocal about it. He has not been shy about it. And, sometimes when things go wrong in the NBA, that doesn't land well. But it seems to be landing very well right now. And that's where, the open door policy, the relationships, the idea that you can communicate freely without offending each other. If you have that, to me, that is such an important part of a team in any sport, but particularly the NBA, where there's egos, there's money. The stakes are so high this year in New York. So I think those are interpersonal relationships with Mike Brown and his players. They matter.
And I was thinking of something else. You're talking about, maybe confrontations during a game. I was thinking about the press conference he had after the first Bulls game, where he called out, it was in regards to the coverage of Ayo Dosunmu, who got to the basket. I think he said he got to the basket like 8 times, and 6 of those times we were shading him the wrong way. That's not something you were used to hearing from the last head coach. There was never an instance where Thibs would get up and say, well, we did this specific thing wrong. He always talked in generalities and really said nothing. So for Mike to go and give those specifics, again, I think to your point, you need that level of trust across the board where you're not upsetting anybody by again, calling out specific instances where anybody could go look and say, okay, well, who was at fault for those 6 things? So I admire Brown, frankly, that he has the level of confidence in himself and in the interpersonal relationships that he is developing in a short amount of time, because he hasn't been here for that long, that he feels comfortable going about things this way. And hopefully, it pays dividends. And this could be a long-lasting thing. And he is building a level of trust that is not going to, evaporate or anything like that.
Yeah, it's definitely something that I will keep an eye on. And there's going to be times where guys are unhappy. I'm sure if you ask somebody truthfully up and down the roster, you'd find 2 or 3 guys who are unhappy about something. That's just the nature of pro sports. And I think just how you navigate it is so important as a head coach. I've seen some coaches ignore it. Some coaches just not address it head on and let it kind of sit. And then it kind of grows into something where it's more than it needed to be. And so let's see how it plays out here. But to me, that was significant when Josh Hart was talking about that open door policy. Now we are going to go to a segment called Storylines. Storylines presented by Fanatics Sportsbook. We're going to look at the Knicks on a 3-game winning streak here, 5-0 at home for the first time since 2012. A very strong start at home. And if you look at that Knick win total for this season, it's currently at 51.5. It opened the year at 53.5. And so interesting to see it fluctuate there a little bit. Knicks obviously off to a strong start at home, not so good on the road, but be sure to check out the Fanatics Sportsbook app for all your NBA future bets all season long. Fanatics Sportsbook, winning hits different here. Now, the Garden, the Garden gives and it takes, right? So the idea that the Knicks are playing well so far at the Garden, to me, matters. Obviously matters from a record perspective, but the idea that the expectations are where they are, very high. And, the crowd wants to see successful basketball. And so to have this early success, to me, it gives you some rope with this home crowd to maybe if you struggle for a half or 3/4 in a game and you have a bad loss, you have some credibility here where the crowd is not going to get too antsy because they've seen success in front of their own eyes. And then sometimes, when the crowd gets on you, things can just snowball in a bad way. I've seen it so many times. So the idea that they're winning games early here, I think they're earning some credibility with the home crowd to where they struggle, they scuffle for a little bit at home. Crowd is going to be not going to be jumping on them right away, and I think that's important.
Yeah, I mean, I also just thinking about last season's playoffs, right? I forget how many total home games they had, but they lost 5 of them. You know, they lost 2 in the first round, 1 in the second, and then the first 2 obviously against Indiana, memorably. And I would guess, obviously I don't know, but you know, James Dolan seems to like his paying customers to have a good time when they come into his venue, whether that's Madison Square Garden or, you know, the Sphere out in Las Vegas. So I got to think the early home success has been a positive development on a number of fronts, especially since, again, this team has not always defended home court that well over the last bunch of years. They were road warriors. They always had a really good road record, one of the best road records in the NBA. But I don't know. It has felt like it feels like a while since the Garden has been that intimidating advantage for the home team that it was. I mean, you know, I go back a ways, but like back in the 90s where teams didn't want to come in there. And I would be very, just frankly, cool for it to get back to that point and have it be a place where teams are afraid to come in and play.
I don't have the numbers in front of me, but you know, those Riley days, those Knick teams were so good at home, by and large. Yeah. And you're making a good point about it becoming like a distinct edge night in, night out, where I don't think it has been night in and night out for teams in recent memory. And that's not a criticism of the fans. They're reacting to what they see on the floor. So, let's see what happens Sunday against Brooklyn, 6 p.m. tip. I don't think they'll have any trouble there, but then they'll be tested moving forward this month. But we're going to hit a segment called Around the World, John. And what we're going to hit on is an argument. I wouldn't say argument, a little back and forth, a healthy discussion that I got into with Xavier, Justin, and I want to make sure, I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly, because I do like a lot of your Knicks takes, and a lot of them are informative. But you were saying the other day, as the Knicks play today, I want to take a moment to share a reminder that nothing that happens this season can vindicate Thibs or prove they should have kept him. So whatever some of you are rooting for in hopes of legitimizing that narrative, it's not happening. I disagreed with this, and I think I took it not as much as Thibs feeling vindicated, but more so as protecting the Knicks from criticism. Like there's nothing that could happen this year where you wouldn't second guess their decision. Justin was saying, I think he was saying basically that Thibs had got this team to their ceiling. So it was an obvious move to move on because they were not going to get any further. I think that's an assumption. Maybe it's true. Maybe it's fully accurate, but it's unknowable, right? Because we're not in that scenario where Tom Thibodeau is coaching this team. So I don't think you can make that assumption. And I also disagree with the idea that you're separating the two. Separating Tom Thibodeau's firing from Mike Brown's hiring. They're very interconnected. You fire a coach, especially in the scenario the Knicks were in, where they had so much success. You're firing that coach. You have to know what your options are. You have to know what the market is. You have to have coaches in mind. And so that's why I don't think you could separate those two. So I looked at it more so as absolutely the Knicks would face criticism for their decision around the head coach with Thibodeau and Mike Brown if they were to, lose in the first round, and if they were healthy and they lost in the first round. Like there are many scenarios to me where you can look at this thing and totally second guess it. And Xavier disagreed. And that's what I love about Twitter. When you can have a healthy disagreement, we didn't call each other names. We just stated our points, and that was it. I think we need some more of that in Twitter and elsewhere. But what was your read, John, if you had one, on how you look at this coaching decision?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think viewers of this show want me to start standing for Thibs about as much as they want us to start singing show tunes. So I will choose my words carefully. Here's what I'll say. I think with the advent of all of the availability of all of the analytics and all of the lineup data and all of these ways where you as a fan can sit home and and then you obviously match that stuff up with what you are seeing on the court, and what you're seeing on the court, there's no escaping that. That is what it is. Like, the X's and O's are right in front of you. But even the combination of those two things, and this was kind of always what I came back to with Thibs, and it was never really about Thibs. It was about the fact that people who are not inside the locker room and not inside the building every day, there is so much that we cannot know and do not see, and that we have to assume, as to the best of our abilities. And we all have to do it. Anybody who, whether you're reporting on the team, whether you're someone like me who sits and tries to say, semi-intelligent things about the team, we all have to make assumptions, and we all have to go on things that we don't know. But at the end of the day, the fact is that there is a lot that we don't know. And so I think my takeaway from your back and forth is the fact that, look, it got very easy towards the end to get on Tom Thibodeau about the process. And it's not even just one process. Pick any number of things that he did, and about the thought behind those things and the process and all of that. But results still matter in this league. And this is a man who, as you have said many times, just took his team to the Eastern Conference Finals, and were it not for a 1 in 1,000 confluence of events that occurred at the end of Game 1 against the Indiana Pacers, might have gone to the NBA Finals, and I think they would have. Those are very good results. And given all the things that we did not know and do not know, I think maybe those results need to be taken with, put a little bit more respect needs to be put on them, as opposed to just focusing on the things that, again, we from our vantage point can know and can see that we maybe disagreed with, or at the very least questioned at the end of the day.
Yeah, I want to say again, appreciate the back and forth with at Xavier J Designs, co-founder of the Hot Hand Theory, co-host of Locked On Knicks. I do enjoy a lot of the way he sees the game. Had to disagree with him there. We had a healthy disagreement. I want to point out too, he said that he was not suggesting that the Knicks are above criticism, but I don't know how you separate that from what he was saying initially. And let's continue to have fun little debates on Twitter and elsewhere, and I appreciate it. We are going to do some more with our audience here. We're going to the Talkback, and we're going to our friend Matt Spenley, social media guru, the Big Spend, and he's going to bring some questions our way, John, and we're going to get into it.
What's up, fellas? As soon as Ian had a back and forth with somebody, you knew we flagged it right away in the production chat, and we said, we got to bring this up. Because when I get the Ian notifications that he's replying to people, I'm all in there. I love it, because I know you put some thought into it. Come on now.
Every once in a while, I get stirred up.
I love it.
And usually it's bad, because then it takes like an hour of my day away, and it's never. I always feel like, why did I do that? But this one was good.
And yet you're always so composed on the show. All right, I want to start with some love for OG, guys, because I think that he was fantastic last night. I think he's been great for most of the year, save for a game or two where he hasn't shot the ball well. Career high in three-point attempts, obviously small sample size, caveat, but I think he's been fantastic, and I think he's OG every single game. I'm encouraged that he continues to play and be healthy. Obviously, that was more of a concern when they first acquired him, and his health continues to hold up. I know you guys mentioned the Knicks, medicinal staff and awards and everything like that. So, John, let's just give OG some love right off the top.
I would love to do nothing more than give OG Anunoby some love. He's playing at an all-star level. One of the popular questions I feel like I've been getting a lot lately is if the Knicks get a third all-star, who would it be? OG Anunoby or Mikal Bridges? And I think it's a great question. Mikal obviously has the playmaking advancements that he's made, and he looks a lot better on defense. But with OG Anunoby, to have a guy that is putting up almost 8 3-point attempts a game, hitting them at the clip that he is, where teams know like they cannot stray off of him at all, like because he is going to fire it away and it's probably going in. And then you look at the splash plays, because defense comes in a lot of shapes and sizes, but when the defensive plays that you make are also offensive plays, oftentimes, It's just such a nice benefit, especially when you're a Knicks team that, you have some defensive issues that you have to cover up. I love the way he's playing. I hope he could stay healthy. And, it just seems like it's been a hand in glove fit in the Mike Brown offense for him.
How many plays has he had already this year? Feels like he's at half court, gets the steal, goes in for the dunk. I feel like he's had like 10 of them this year.
It's 1 or 2 a game. Yeah. And you come to expect it. And yet teams still kind of go in his vicinity. Look, no one's ever going to get to the level, I don't think, that we saw Kawhi at, whatever, 6-7 years ago, where you didn't go on his side of the court. But he's like one notch down from that. It's pretty close.
Yeah, I know he was joking with you guys in the locker room yesterday. I think our Chelsea Sherrod asked him about his trick to deflections, and he said, "I'll never tell my secrets." So I know he was kind of joking with you guys about that yesterday in the locker room.
Yeah, and he's fun because he is usually very straight-laced, buttoned up, but there's always humor behind some of the things that he's saying, and sometimes he lets it out like that, but he's got a great sense of humor, and I think that sometimes it comes across, sometimes it doesn't, but it's been always fun to cover him and ask him about his game and others, because he does offer some good insight. And you look at the contract that he signed, right? The Knicks, at the time, I guess maybe some people scratched their head. I think he was going to get that money maybe from Philadelphia or somewhere else if the Knicks didn't give it to him. But then you look at it in the context of the cap just going up consistently. And I think that deal, you're going to look at it, at the end or towards the end, and you're going to say, this is a good contract if Anunoby stays healthy and continues to produce. And one thing I find interesting, guys, is the rebounding, right? Because Mike Brown has these guys crashing from the corners to get on the offensive glass. And OG Anunoby had 5 offensive rebounds last night, and his rebounding numbers in general have been up. Mikal Bridges as well. And there were a couple of games last year against Boston where those guys played 40 minutes and they had maybe 1 rebound between them. Mm-hmm. And it just didn't make a lot of sense to me. And so now that there's a shift there, and maybe it's just schematically, maybe it's that simple, but the idea that he's rebounding the ball, helping the Knicks on that end, to me is significant.
All around play. That's what we come to expect. All right, Ian, I want to ask you, Bro Smith on Twitter is asking, will Mike Brown stick with the same starting lineup with Mitch for every game if the Knicks are fully healthy, or will he switch it up depending on the opponent? I know we've already seen them have a variety of starting lineups this year, but now that we feel like the Knicks are kind of fully healthy at this point, do you think that you'll see some consistency with the starting lineup?
Yeah, I've asked him that, and he's been asked that by other reporters. He's been kind of coy about the idea of I could match up depending on the opponent, or I could stick with, what is consistent. But I do think he would stick with that Mitchell Robinson, Karl-Anthony Towns front court throughout the regular season, because that's what he had shown in the preseason that he wanted to see. That's what he's shown in the regular season he wants to see when everybody's healthy. It's clear that he likes that, and he wants to see that alignment as much as he can. So I don't think he would switch it up much if everyone is healthy. Maybe it's a little different. You get into a playoff series and it's clear you have to make a change because of the way the series is going. Maybe he switches it up then. But I just based on what we've seen so far, I don't think he would switch it up based on the opponent on a night in and night out basis. I think he would stick with Robinson and Towns and just continue to see that through.
And John, for you, for me watching the games, I don't really care who starts too much. I think it depends on the matchups too, who we've seen him deploy. It's more about the lineup data and who's playing together. So I always think that the starting lineup is what we put stock in, we put conversation in. To me, it's more about who's healthy, how many minutes are they getting, and I'll actually go into I'm going to skip ahead just a little bit to another question. Ron from Owings Mills, something about Josh Hart. Can the Knicks keep playing Josh Hart 25 minutes a night? He will be fresh come playoff time. So to go back to Hart a little bit, and then let's weave in Mitch a little bit too, just the amount of minutes that these guys are playing. And, you guys have talked about the roles, their veterans, how they feel within the team. So I guess generally some of those guys that we've come to expect to be staples, just having smaller roles, limiting their playing time, deploying them in the right lineups.
I mean, Josh Hart, I've been stealing this line from my colleague Benji Ritholtz for years. Josh Hart is a fantastic 25 minute a game player, 25 to 30. At 35 minutes a night is when you start to see the creases and the cracks in his game. There is such a thing as overusing some guys. For as much as Josh Hart contributes to winning in so many different ways, I think he was overextended last year, and it really was a carryover, I think, from the previous season when they had to play him so minutes because they had no choice because they just ran out of healthy bodies. But when deployed correctly, you're talking about lineup data. That starting lineup that frustrated so many people last year, and Thibodeau never went away from. You look at them now, again, it's super small sample size. It's very early in the season. They've only played 8 games. But the Josh Hart lineup with the starters, they've played more minutes than any other Knick lineup, and they have a gangbusters net rating. They're outscoring teams by 23.2 points per 100 possessions. It is proof that lineup can work just fine as long as everybody is out there playing the right way. And I want to give all the credit in the world, by the way, to the new head coach, because he should absolutely take a victory lap because, hey, on its face, the only thing that's different with those 5 between this year and last year is the stuff that they're running. So it seems to be working, and I would expect that those, again, they won't start games to your point, Matt, but I wouldn't be surprised to see those 5 finish a lot of games from here on in.
And I think it was a common refrain last year with how many minutes that starting lineup played, and something we've seen with Brown is he's experimenting. He's experimenting and seeing what can work and what can't. So when they get to game 76 and then they get to the Eastern Conference semifinal, if they're going to get in the playoffs, he can kind of know what he wants to do at that point. So I know I've seen that kind of discussion point. I want to switch gears a little bit, guys, and staying on the Brown topic. He made a comment about something that a guy, Kevin Huerter, that he coached in Sacramento. Huerter, when the Knicks played the Bulls, went to Brown and kind of said, wow, I recognize all the offense you guys are doing. I recognize the play calls. I recognize everything about it. And I think, there's some conversation about, is there anything potentially problematic about that? But I know we have the Brown clip queued up. So let's listen to it, and then we'll have a discussion about that.
After our game against Chicago, I walked by Kev and I said, I told Kevin Huerter, I said, miss you, man. I enjoyed our time working together in Sacramento. He said, yeah, coach, I did too. He goes, dang, you brought everything that we did in Sacramento here with the exact same calls. I felt like I was back in Sacramento on offense. I knew everything that was coming. So we're trying to play the same way.
Ian, what do you think about that?
I mean, look, I think that so much is similar in the NBA in terms of what gets run. There are wrinkles. Coaches have their principles that they like to play by, but there's a lot of similarity. And so the idea that Huerter knew the calls, to me, that's a little bit different. Maybe you switch up your calls because you don't want that out there in a big way, and you don't want to expose yourself there. But the idea that they're running the same stuff physically, the same spacing, the same approach. I don't know how many plays Mike Brown has even put in yet, but some of the same plays. You're not going to avoid that. Maybe what you can avoid is the calls and how you communicate it, because you don't want that stuff getting called out.
John, what do you think? You have any take here in Brown's comments?
I mean, to me, the whole thing is the Knicks offense needs to be unpredictable, because last season they were the most predictable offense, one of the most predictable offenses in the sport. And to their credit, they had a lot of really good basketball players. And so it didn't matter that teams knew what they were going to do. They still couldn't stop it a large part of the time. And so now with all of the different kind of concepts that they are instituting, and perhaps more importantly than that, the fact that they are getting into their actions sooner so you could have multiple actions on the same possession, I think it just adds to the variability from possession to possession. So I don't have an issue with the fact that they're running the same stuff Brown used to run. I think all these teams run, kind of versions of the same stuff. But yeah, to Ian's point, maybe switch up the actual signals or whatever that is that you use.
Yeah, and even
changing your password every once in a while. You don't want to have the same password for 3 years.
That's true. Like when you're playing Little League Baseball, and your coach has the bunt sign or something like that, you can't keep the bunt sign the same. You got to mix it up eventually. You got to throw in some indicators. That's what I remember having back in the day.
Yes.
I bet you were a really good Little League player, Matt.
Oh, thanks, John. I was a catcher for a little bit, and then guys started throwing off-speed junk pitches, and I said, that's it for me. I'm done. I can't do it anymore. That was it. I want to ask you guys about one role player, and then I have a final one for Ian. Guard Up Knicks is asking, what do you guys think about Yabusele? Do you think he will shake this off, or do you think the system is just too difficult to adjust to? So I know he was a guy people were excited about adding to the roster, and his role initially, seemed like he would be playing a little bit, and then he's been limited. Ian, I'm curious what you think about Yabu so far.
I think we're going to see the best of Yabusele later on this season, and I don't want to say like that there's a conditioning issue. I don't think it's that, but I think just the idea that he had played so much basketball over the past, what do you want to call it, 15 months, 16 months. He played in the Olympics. He played the most minutes he's ever played in an NBA season for Philadelphia last year. He played in the Euros this past off season, and that's a lot. I mean, I assume he needed a break at some point, and so I think in a roundabout way, I'm saying that I think that his conditioning will improve over the course of the year, and he's going to look like the player in terms of his shape and conditioning that you saw in Philadelphia. So I don't think there's reason for concern there. I think just you'll see a natural progression here over the course of the year.
John, where are you at on Yabu?
He hasn't been great, and more than being excited about the player himself, I was excited about the role that he was theoretically going to inhabit here. Ian reported over the summer that the front office, that maybe there were some people there that liked the idea of him as a backup. Maybe you could play him with Mitch, maybe you could play him with Towns, the versatility that he should bring if he's going right. And I just, to Ian's point, I don't think we've seen that player yet. And I think we're more likely to see that player later in the year. That said, I think he's out there. He's trying hard. He's doing everything he can, and it might just take a little bit of time. But I'm still high on him long term.
It's been 8 games. I know we like to react every game, but that part's important. Clearly, my cat doesn't care that I'm live on a show right now. Okay, 1 second. I got one final question. All right, Ian, one final one for you. Has it been asked, and you guys tell me, because I'm not sure about this, does anyone know how the defensive player Tim's hard hat came to be? Have you guys that are on the beat done any investigate? I don't know if it's been asked and if they've said we're not going to tell. I don't know. And if you could do some investigating for us, I think we'd all be curious. But have they said anything about it? I don't know. I don't remember.
Yeah, I don't know specifically how it came about, but I know that Stefan Bondi from the Post said that Derek Lipinski, Knicks VP of Communications, I think I have that title right. It was his idea to implement the Timberlands, and to me, that makes the whole thing connection to New York, obviously, and just it makes it fun. I asked probably one of the dumber questions. There is such thing as a dumb question. I asked one of the dumber questions of my career when I was asking Mikal Bridges. So with the Tims, do you get to keep those and they have pairs for every player? And he's like, no, man, it's just for the picture. And I was like, that makes sense. So yeah, I think VP of Communications for the Knicks, Derek Lipinski, had a hand in it. I'm not sure beyond that, but how it came to fruition, but we'll try to find out.
It's a great question. I heard that when you sent the clip of Bridges in, and I laughed while I was listening to it. Did you guys see the guy running the New York Marathon in the Tims also? And Kat quote tweeted and it was joking. Didn't see OG running. I was at the marathon this weekend watching my sister run. I could not imagine running a marathon in Tims, but shouts to that guy.
That's crazy.
That's what I got, guys.
Tom Thibodeau any day.
Oh, any day. He's running right to MSG. He's on his way. Well, I guess last year. You get it. All right, guys. That's what I got.
All right, thank you, Matt. Quick look ahead. Knicks have a few days off here. Sunday, they get the Nets, who got their first win last night, but have been struggling, I think, with lineups and figuring out how to implement the rookies. So that should be an easy game for the Knicks Sunday. But we really appreciate you guys joining us for our show today. We're going to have another mailbag next week. Grateful to have John, Dean of Knicks Film School, with us talking Knicks. We're wrapping it up here, but again, we'll be back with the Putback with Ian Begley, presented by Fanatics Sportsbook next week with the first edition of Begley's Mailbag. So be sure to keep an eye out on social media to submit those questions, and we look forward to seeing you then.